Frank Stoner.
You're good to go.
All right, great. Thank you. It is 1:03 and I'm calling the December 6th, 2021 meeting of the Albemarle County Architectural Review Board to order. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with ordinance number 20A16, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. A quorum is present. Architectural Review Board members presently electronically are Frank Hancock, Chris Henningsen, Fred Missel, and I believe Frank Stoner will be joining us, but is not on the call at this point.
He just arrived.
He just arrived? Oh, great. Hey, Frank, good, welcome. Frank Stoner has just arrived. Opportunities for public access to this meeting are posted on the county's website at the county calendar. The public has real-time audio-visual access to the meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone, both as provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. The online meeting is a public record and subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. All speakers, when it's your turn to speak, please first state your name for the record. Everyone who's participating today, it's good practice to mute your microphone until it's your time to speak. Applicants who are making presentations, please note that your presentation is limited to a total of 15 minutes, which you can divide among your team members. Carolyn will let us know when the 15 minutes are up. So I'll begin with disclosures. Do any ARB members have anything to disclose today?
No.
Great, thanks. Carolyn, are there any members of the public that want to make a comment about a project that's not on the agenda for review?
Not at this time, there isn't, no.
All right, sounds good. So I do not see any consent agenda items today, and there are no work sessions today. There are two regular review items. Chris Taggart and Margaret Malashevsky from the Planning Division of the Community Development will be presenting them. The first regular review item is ARB 2021-131, Discount Tire Final Site Plan. And I'll ask you, Chris, for the presentation. Thanks.
Hold on one second. Sorry about that. All right, the application I'm presenting on today is the final review of architecture and site plan to construct a discount tire vehicle service facility in addition to the associated site improvements. The site is located at 1636 Seminole Trail. On July 19th, the ARB recommended approval of the initial plan and provided comments on the preliminary architecture. And on October 4th, a work session was held where the ARB provided comments on the revisions made to the north elevation. To summarize the staff report, the focus is largely on the forms and materials used in the building design and site landscaping. Minor changes have been made to the building design, including revising the CMU finish, one of the ACM panel colors, adding plant trellises along the north elevation, and changing the metal cap at the top of the building to consistently match one of the CMU colors. However, the renderings have not been revised to accurately show the scale and finish of the proposed masonry, and the design of the east elevation features an ACM bay that is monumentally scaled. The scale of this bay is further highlighted by the bright white color proposed for the panels and the lack of a canopy. Revising the white panel color to one that's more muted, aligning the top of the storefront on the east elevation to the height on the south elevation, adding a canopy to the east elevation, and reducing the scale of the ACM bay may provide us a greater sense of human scale and cohesion along the entrance quarter elevation. Regarding the north elevation, the plant trellises help to add visual interest, but the gap at the bottom of the trellises breaks up the connection established with the garage bay doors on the south elevation, and there appears to be a conflict with ground-mounted equipment, mechanical equipment. Staff recommends revising the trellises to extend to the ground to match the bay doors and relocating the mechanical equipment. Regarding the landscaping for the site, the building has been shifted back to increase the planting area along the frontage. This allows for the plantings to be clear of easements, but there's still a conflict with the overhead line. This can be resolved by further increasing the planting area, but that will likely require eliminating some spaces in the parking road along the frontage. Currently, there are 5 more parking spaces than required. Along the north side of the parcel, a mixture of ornamentals and shrubs have been added at the top of the retaining wall to help soften the appearance of the north elevation. But due to the deciduous plantings, the appearance for the entrance corridor will not be consistent year-round. Staff recommends revising the deciduous landscaping to evergreens for a more consistent appearance. The other primary landscaping issue from the previous submittal was the insufficient landscaping at the base of retaining walls. No landscaping has been added, but the maximum wall heights have been reduced and the taller parts of the wall are further from the entrance corridor, so impacts will be reduced. Staff recommends approval of the final site plan with the revisions listed in the staff report. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Chris. I'll ask the ARB members if you have any questions first. Chris Henningsen?
Chris, thanks for the presentation. I don't have any questions at this time. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Frank Stoner?
Chris, thanks. That was great. Do we, by chance, have a photographic or rendered version just showing more context? I know we've looked at it before, but I'm just struggling to remember what's on either side.
Either side of the building itself.
Yeah, the building itself.
Are you viewing my screen now?
Yeah, perfect.
It's
right here.
The site of former Wendy's Enterprise would be to the north, and public stores with the Speedway gas stations to the south, and Rio's further, just a little bit further north.
Okay, that's what I thought. I wasn't sure the relationship of Enterprise, just from a setback standpoint, to what they're proposing to build. You know, their building sits back further than the Wendy's does, I think, right?
Correct. I'm not sure relationship wise now with the pushing the building a little bit further back to accommodate the frontage landscaping, what the relationship is to the Enterprise at its current time.
And I assume the trees that are shown in this area between Enterprise and Discount Tire would go away as part of the site work, or are those actually on the Enterprise site?
Check. I believe those would go away, but let me check and see if they show up on the existing. Yeah, those would be going away.
Okay. Great. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thanks, Frank. Frank Hancock, any questions?
Yes, thanks, Chris. Just one question about the white ACM panel. Couldn't remember if that was a comment from the initial site plan or if that was something we discussed at the work session.
It was a comment from the initial site plan.
Okay.
Preliminary architectural drawing.
So that's not a brand new comment for this.
No.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Chris, I only had one question. It was a really helpful presentation where you showed that long red rectangle and mentioned conflicts with the overhead lines. Was that red rectangle representing where the overhead lines were?
Yes, it was highlighting the approximate location.
Got it. And is the only conflict that one tree that's up in the corner that it overlaps with?
Due to species, we're respecting the one tree you pointed out and potentially the other two kind of north of it, the entrance to the site, because the height and spread of the proposed species.
Got it. Okay. Great, thank you. All right, I'll ask for the applicant's presentation now.
Good afternoon. This is Ryan Yager with Bowler. Representatives from the architectural team here with me as well. Definitely appreciate the review of the final site plan application and all the previous meetings as well. As you're aware, we've had the initial site plan meeting as well as a work session to kind of hash out the individual items here. So we feel confident going in and very receptive of the comments here that Chris has made as an overall standpoint. I believe rather than have a separate presentation, would like to try to tailor our coordination and questions to the landscaping frontage area that you guys were just speaking to. Frank, to answer your question that you were inquiring about, the existing Wendy's was about 40 feet off the property line, whereas the new building placement here for the discount tire is about 100 feet. So there's a 60-foot pushback with this application based on the existing buildings that are there. That does in fact allow for that planting area to be placed in front, exclusive of the existing utilities that are there and some of the overhead lines. I will share my screen momentarily here. And then as this comes up, I did highlight the red line that is there on the screen. Is everybody able to see that currently? So that is the existing approximate location of the overhead line versus the tree placement of the current proposed landscaping plan. We do have some room there to maneuver trees a little bit further away from that overhead line while still preserving those spaces there in the front. However, those spaces in particular are very important to the end user here to allow for customer service as they first come into the center there before getting serviced in the actual tire bays. So would like to open up the discussion mainly overall this area here, looking to potentially shift some trees around, maybe move them up a little bit closer to the parking. We might be able to potentially move one into the parking and carve out an island here for one of those. But it would be kind of parking in between the trees there rather than true frontage in front of the parking. So just as an option there. But overall, as in summary, very receptive to comments, understood going forward, feel confident we can address the list here that Chris has in front of us. Just wanted to hash out and talk about this parking area.
Great, thank you, Ryan. That's helpful. And I guess I'll open it up to ARB members to see if there are any questions or thoughts on what's been presented. I'll start with Frank Stoner this time.
Thanks, Fred. I don't think I have any further questions of Ryan. Ryan, thanks for sharing this. It looks like, yeah, there are a couple of options maybe for relocating what's in the power or around that power line. I must say, I don't have some of the other issues raised in Chris's report. I guess we can discuss more in committee in our session. But I'm generally pretty comfortable with what I see here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Fred.
Frank.
Yeah.
Sure. Frank Hancock.
Yes, Thanks, Ryan. Just want to check on a couple things to my question for Chris earlier. Sounds like you guys are okay with revisiting the color of that ACM, the white, because that was one of the comments. Just curious how you feel about that.
I'm sorry, Frank. This is Dev with, I'm a principal and architect with Architectural Resource Team in Phoenix. Can we talk about that a little bit since you brought that up, the white color of the ACM?
Yes.
So Discount Tire has about 1,200 stores nationwide in more than 35 states. And about 3 years ago, they embarked on a mission to give a new facelift to all their stores. And this was keeping in line with what was happening in the retail business. I'm sure you have seen retail facelift upgrades to Wendy's, to McDonald's. McDonald's was really the pioneer. They started it first. And you're seeing that across from Pandas and everybody else. It was time for Discount also to catch up. And 3 years ago, they hired a branding firm out of Chicago to come up with a new vision. That white ACM is part of their branding image nationwide. And we definitely want to work with you guys and arrive at a color that helps us both. But that comment is very generic in terms of a more muted color. Can we get some help in terms of what the color palette might be from where we can choose something that still follows the branding image and mission that Discount wants to portray nationwide? And at the same time, satisfy your needs also if the white is too bright or whatever the issue may be.
Thank you for that context. Just thinking through a couple things to consider. The amount of it, I think, would be something to look at. And then also, as I think Ryan mentioned, perhaps landscape, do some things on the site that could help minimize the impact of that color and that feature on the entrance corridor.
Understood. Okay. Right now, the way the landscape sits, you're not really going to see that much of the ACM visible as it seems in the rendering. And especially when you are driving at whatever the speed is along Seminole Trail, imagine filtered through trees, the building that you're going to see behind, it's really not as much as it is deceiving in an elevation, if you will.
I agree. And I think, the site plan is really nice that the building is pushed back and you have created that, larger planted area out front. You've eliminated one of the entrances. I think those are all positive things. So maybe if we get down to it, it might just be a visualization exercise that, helps everybody understand what the full impact of that is.
Understood. And yes, as somebody mentioned, the building is set back quite a bit. It's almost 100 feet from, so it really, visually, it's way further back than you are normally used to seeing retail up front near a street.
Yes. Well, thank you. That's helpful to hear some of that background. And then I did have just one other quick question, Ryan. Want to make sure you guys are okay with doing evergreens along that, is that the north property line? Where I think the rendering kind of looks like crepe myrtles. I think that would go to helping kind of the first point about the white ACM panels as well.
Yes, we can look into evergreens. I mean, we're certainly trying to provide a variety of plant types in there for the color aspect as well, just from the overall site side of things, but we can look into the evergreens.
Okay.
And I have one more comment about the switchgear also. We have the green plant trellis, and we'll take them down to the ground level. If we do take them down to the ground level, the switchgear will be screened behind it. Would that be acceptable? Because that switchgear is a pretty expensive exercise to move, as it increases the run of the primary then from the transformer to the SES. And everything from the switchgear is all secondary. So that was also a question. If you're able to screen it, if you're able to even paint it in the same color as the plant material and help it disappear, would that be something that the board would consider?
I think
That's
that's a good, sorry, go ahead, Frank.
I'm just looking at it now. I think that falls under needing to be completely screened. And that could be, there could be a couple different strategies for doing that. If it is this trellis, we as a board would just need to understand how that would completely screen it, maybe and how that system works, if it's pulled away from the building, or is there something else that completely screens it?
Well, you won't even see it. If that trellis, right now you see a small rectangular opening underneath, because of which you're able to see a portion of that switchgear. But if you visualize that screen going all the way down to the bottom, then you don't see anything behind it. And we will even paint the switchgear in the same color, so it disappears even more. The little bit of gray that would have been visible through openings, even that won't be as visible as a switchgear cabinet. In fact, it will almost completely disappear.
Yeah, and then
Hey,
I think
Chris.
we would just be looking at plant type, I think would be critical.
Okay,
Something that would completely screen it.
right. And you would want that plant material to last all year round also, so you don't have times of the year where the plant material is not growing and now the equipment is visible.
Correct.
Okay.
While
Hey,
we're,
Chris. Sorry,
go ahead.
just wondering, Chris, could you pull up those elevations? I'm looking at them on my screen, but I think it's helpful in this conversation to at least be able to identify exactly where the switchgear is. And also I had a question about the white paneling as well, where it turns the corner.
Yeah.
If you look at the south elevation, it looks like that white panel terminates, and then there's like a red, there's a red bar, which I would have expected to be white.
Right.
Actually, in the design, that side bar is all red color. It's a discount tire red, which has already been changed here to a more mutated color. But in the new brand image, that it's a thin red line that you see from the sides that mimics the discount tire red color.
I see.
Let me go to the previous.
There you go. Yeah.
Highlighted.
Okay, I see.
So your observation is correct, Fred. It is white that turns to red on the side. And
Although
going back to
now
the
it's-
white ACM, when I was talking about that, that whole thing is a package with their branding. So it would be nice to keep that red and the white in the front if the board is acceptable to it.
Frank Stoner, did you have any other questions?
I don't think so. There's no portion of that red strip that's visible on the white panel in front. It's only visible once you turn the corner.
Correct.
Yeah,
That's right, Frank.
Okay.
While we're on these images, if I could, and Chris, I'm sorry, I'll get to you in just a second for questions, but since Frank Hancock brought up the question of the switch gear, if you scroll down, I guess, and go to the floor plans, Chris, there you can see the switch gear extends beyond the face of the building. And I was a little bit confused if that's a pad for the electrical switch gear and if that actually represents the box or the rectangle. How is the screen that's flush with the wall, I assume, going to screen that system?
Well, we have done this in the past in multiple states where the screen is actually composed of hinges and gates also around the switchgear. So you actually have those openable gates because that switchgear needs to be serviced very seldomly, but it does need to be serviced at times, and then you need to have access. In other cases, we have done a trellis which is removable. So they completely remove it, not removed by the general public, but only with specialized trades that can come in and remove it, work on the switchgear and reinstall it back on. But that then affects the plant growth and everything else too. Usually doing the gates works out much better because it maintains the continuity of the vines and everything else.
So you're saying that there would be a trellis that would essentially come along the face of the building and then go up and around the switchgear and then continue again? on the face?
Well,
of
it
the
will be
building?
a straight line in front of the switchgear, but that straight line will have built-in gates in it, which allow it to open.
Okay. So the entire panel will be offset from the face of the building?
Correct. Yes.
So there will be no green screen that's adjacent or on the face of the building?
Correct. Not at that location. The other locations, they will be up close to the building wall and anchored to the wall itself. But at the switchgear, it will be more offset.
Okay. Great. Okay, thank you. Chris
How
Henningsen,
tall
any
is,
questions?
sorry,
Sorry, Frank. We'll come
Yeah.
back to you.
yeah, no problem.
Chris Henningsen?
Yeah, the getting back to the switchgear is that in plan what we're looking at right now, where the switchgear box appears to be about 3 feet wide, or at least the panel, the screen panel covering it would have to be about 3 feet away from the wall. Is that accurate? Do you know approximately how deep that switchgear cabinet is?
The switchgear cabinet usually is about 6 feet wide by 2 feet deep. And the trellis would be a foot away from the switchgear. So it'll be 3 feet from the wall. And the width is much larger because I think the goal was to mimic the garage doors on the other side.
I'm just wondering if it's going to have the same visual effect in reality, being 3 feet away from the wall as opposed to the other panels, which are right on the wall. I wonder if it's, in elevation, it all looks exactly the same, but, in reality, it's, I think, going to look a little bit different. And I'm just wondering if that is going to work visually.
So you're concerned, Christian, about the side being visible because of it being open?
Yeah, I guess so. That 3 foot gap between the screening and the actual wall of the building, the switchgear to inhabit that area, it's not going to look like a panel that's against the building. It's going to be this freestanding panel that's like 3 feet away from the building. So I think driving by in a car, I mean, really much of what we're talking about on this side of the building, I don't think is going to be all that visible, but at least as a straight on shot, like if you're looking at the front of the building, for example, from Seminole Trail, you're actually going to see this 3 foot gap at, between the freestanding screen panel.
You're right. You're right, Christian, about that. So let me
Yeah.
take it back to Discount Tire and see if we can do a return panel, or best would be to just relocate it elsewhere and them to just take on the added cost of running extended primary lines. I can take that back to them and maybe present some solutions.
I'm just wondering if, even it might be a matter of the switchgear panel being painted the same color as the wall behind, and just, not having the screen panel in that location, and, just.
Oh, that would be very helpful, Chris. We can certainly do that.
That, to me, it seems like having the screen offset is going to be more of a kind of visual, would look less good than just having the switchgear painted to match the background and, kind of disappear into the wall.
I agree. And in fact, Chris, to be honest with you, majority of the stores have it painted to match the wall color. You are right. Doing that contraption around it is definitely more, it's doing less harm, not as much good,
Yeah, I think, keeping them further back where they do kind of mirror the bay doors on the other side of the building makes sense. It's just this one particular location. It looks better, I think, in elevation than I think would look in reality.
I agree. In fact, if we just take that front one out and just paint the switchgear in the same wall color, I think that will make it blend much, much better. I think that's a great suggestion, Christian, if the rest of the board would agree.
I think that's a good idea. I think it's something we can talk about in discussion as well. And, you know, what I'm also thinking about a situation we had, if I'm remembering correctly, this is years ago, at the, is it the vitamin shop across the street? Remember how there were some utilities on the side facing the entrance corridor, Margaret, and we had them screen them, and I think they built a screen fence around them, if I'm not mistaken. But another option here might be to simply do a small low screen wall that's made of the same material that adjacent wall is made of, if we're concerned about actually seeing the utility itself. Something we could talk about as an option. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Chris. Any other questions or comments from the board for the applicant?
No, I don't have any other questions. Thanks.
Okay, great. Carolyn, is there a member of the public who would like to comment on this?
No, not at this time.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, applicant, thank you. We will now go into discussion, and I'll go around the horn again and ask for thoughts. And this may be one of those situations where we kind of all come off mute and discuss different options, but I'll start with Frank Hancock.
Thanks, Fred. Yeah, it sounds like the applicant's willing to address all of staff's comments. I'll probably repeat what I said at the last review, but I think it's a really nice site plan. I think it's a vast improvement of what's out there now. I don't think the building will have a huge impact on the corridor. So, you know, to me, the white ACM panel, you know, maybe there's a visualization that shows that, you know, a little bit more accurately than kind of what we looked at. I mean, it's really, you know, the elevations and the perspective that we looked at, you know, they were more to show materials and not necessarily to show it in context. But I think having understanding the setback, understanding that additional, you know, area for landscaping out front, you know, I think they have a minimal impact, or could have a minimal impact. I appreciate the applicant's willingness to, you know, tone down the red. That's something we've seen a lot of, is that one branded color a lot of times, and the red in combination with the white might have read more like a, you know, more of a branded element. So I think that's successful. The last thing I'll add, I think we need to think about the switchgear as, you know, something that needs to be screened completely. So Fred, I know you were mentioning, you know, whether that's an actual enclosure. I think that would need to be solid. I don't know that a trellis with plants growing on it with an operable gate, to me, that I don't know that that would meet our requirements of being screened completely. Or as staff noted, maybe that's just, it's relocated. Maybe the switchgear, you know, and the applicant can make the case too that it could be on that side, but just shift it a little bit further down, or there's some strategic landscaping, some evergreens that would screen it completely. So those are my thoughts.
Great thoughts. Thanks. Chris, any comments or thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of to echo what Frank Stoner said a little bit earlier. I'm generally don't really have any big concerns about what's presented. I think we're just down to some finer grain details. So I personally don't have a problem with the white ACM panels, considering that it's just one part of the building and part of the building that's going to have some pretty significant, landscape in front of it. So, and other than that, I think, figuring out a way to screen that electrical equipment, I think I feel like there's a better way than that landscape, the plant screen, but I don't think that's a real big hurdle. So I don't have any specific, comments beyond what's mentioned in the staff report.
Great, thanks, Chris. Mr. Stoner?
Look, just for clarification, my understanding is that the switchgear is in a cabinet. Is that correct?
Yes, it is in a cabinet.
Okay, and that cabinet could be painted the same color as the wall.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, Fred, I would echo what I said before, and I think what Chris said. I don't have an issue with the white panel. In fact, in some respects, I wouldn't mind seeing it actually wrap that corner rather than putting the red strip there, but that's not a big deal. I think as gentleman noted, I think we're seeing a lot of this rebranded architecture on all kinds of fast food and service locations along the corridor. And so I think it's a clean look. I don't really have an issue with it. I tend to agree with Chris as well. I think they're better off to paint the cabinet if it can't be moved, and I can understand why they wouldn't want to. I think if it's painted the same color as the wall, given how far back this building is from the corridor, I just don't see it being an issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am.
Great, thanks, Frank. So I'll echo much of what was said, starting with the ACM. I don't have a problem with the white ACM. I know we've seen it on other projects like the Toyota dealership, I think, up on Pantops and maybe some other areas. I, like you, Frank, would prefer I don't have a strong feeling about this, but I believe what we were asking for was a more muted color rather than the red edge. And one other option is, rather than introducing another color to that panel, just having it be white. So wrap white along that narrow edge. So it seems like it's a uniform kind of monolithic piece, which makes sense to me. It's also very narrow on the edge, and I don't think you're going to see it much at all as you're driving along northbound. As far as the landscape, I'm not sure if we talked about the trees that are conflicting with the overhead lines and the applicant's ideas about possibly moving one of the larger trees into the parking area. But I would be very supportive of that as an option, and then want to make sure that the lower screening shrubs that I think are below the overhead line are substantial and effective at screening the parking as much as possible under there. So I'd be supportive of that. And then lastly, the switchgear. I generally agree with the idea that painting the panel to match the side of the building would be acceptable. My only concern, and maybe the reason why I would probably prefer some form of a structural wall that's made of that same material facing the corridor, is just to keep in mind precedent and what we've done if it's visible and if it's mechanical equipment from the entrance corridor. I know on other examples, we've asked the applicants to be sure that there was either a fence or some sort of screen that would block it visually. And maybe that just needs to be on the side that's parallel with the entrance corridor. It doesn't even need to wrap, but because that might prevent or present difficulty with opening the doors on the switchgear. So maybe painting the cabinet and then a small wall that disguises it parallel with the entrance corridor. I know we're not supposed to design these things, but it's just a detail. And I think that was all of my comments. So thanks everyone. Any bounce backs just quickly about the landscape and the conflict with the overhead line? Does anyone have any concerns with the applicant's idea of moving a large tree back into the parking area? Okay.
I don't.
Okay, great. Well, Chris, can we pull up your recommendations? We'll go through them.
I'm gonna try to pull that up. Sorry for the technical issues earlier.
No problem.
I'm gonna try and share again, see what happens. Are you able to see my Word document?
Yes, we are.
Great. Okay, so the recommendation is for approval with the conditions that were listed in the staff report. I've highlighted a few here that sounded like you had most discussion on. I didn't hear discussion about the form and distribution of materials in number 3.
Oh, we can do that. That's easy. We can align the storefront heights and everything the way they have been asked for. We can do that.
Maybe it's that last sentence,
Revising the
which
white
talks
ACM.
about reducing the scale and revising the white ACM to a more muted color. We just to strike that.
Just strike this portion of it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then number 5 says the same thing, so.
Yeah, and number 4, we can do a wing wall so that the gear is screened completely from Seminole Trail. It will be in the same direction as the frontage. So we can do a little wing wall that's attached to the building. Will be painted in the same color as the building. It will screen the unit. It will not hinder its opening of the doors and everything. So make it functional also. And at the same time, it will screen it from Seminole Trail.
Okay, if I understood that, that's a wing wall, and that would be to be screening the switch cabinet. Number 4 is talking about taking the trellises all the way down to the ground.
Correct, to match the garage doors, but not the one in the front. We will eliminate the one in the front by the switchgear.
Right.
Correct.
Do the ARB members want to keep number 4 as it's written? Revise the plant trellises to extend down the elevation to match the form of the bay doors along the south elevation.
That would make sense to me.
Okay.
Makes sense to me. Yep. I think it's
And
what
removes
we've
the
used
one
in
up.
other areas as well. Sorry, Frank.
Sorry, do we need to add that we're removing the one on the closest to the corridor there?
Yeah, good call.
Thank you.
And then number 7, I think we are saying that relocation is still an option if the applicant chooses to go that direction, but an alternative could be to add a wing wall and paint the cabinet to match the building
Right.
elevation.
Yeah. And thank you for that too. Thank you so much.
And I guess we're asking them to consider relocation. So we might, rather than saying revise site plan, and consider revising.
Mhm. Good.
Well, the other one I highlighted is number 11, revise the plan to provide additional planting area along the Route 29 frontage to accommodate required frontage trees free of utilities. Note that this will likely require the elimination of some parking spaces in the 8-space row adjacent to the 29 frontage.
Yeah, I think what we're saying is alternatively, the applicant may locate larger trees further into the planting area towards the building and one in the parking area to eliminate one parking space. Does that sound right, everyone?
Yep.
So again, I would suggest we change that revise to consider revising, since we're providing a,
Just to be clear, it's not, you can consider both of them to do nothing, it's one or the other. Is that accurate?
That would be
I
my
don't know.
interpretation. One or the other. So if, like, for example, with the switchgear, they can either relocate the switch cabinet to eliminate the visibility or add a wing wall and paint the cabinet to match the building. Is that what you were asking, Margaret?
It is. Somebody might read it to mean you can consider either one and do nothing.
Got it.
But just to make sure that, just to be sure that the applicant understands that it's one or the other for both number 7 and number 11.
Right. Right.
Okay. Okay.
can we go back to 3 for a minute?
Sure.
And I just question with regard to the scale of the, let's see, reducing the scale of the ACM bay. I don't think we're asking them to do that anymore, are we?
Right. That was my understanding that we are not doing that. You're correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that everyone?
I think that's correct, Frank. In fact, I think just having it slightly higher helps to accentuate it and make it stand out as an entrance.
I agree. I like the current design better than pulling that down.
I do too. Chris and Frank, are you okay with those?
Yeah, no, I'm on board with that.
Would it be simpler to eliminate the first sentence from number 3 and then just say align the
Yes.
heights? Will that work?
Yep.
Yep.
And I didn't hear discussion about the canopy. Do you want to keep this adding the canopy to the EC elevation?
Is there a door there?
Which one are we talking about? Number 8?
We're still clarifying number 3, where it says, I just lost it. It now says align the storefront heights on the EC elevation with those on the south side, adding a canopy to the EC elevation. My question is, does the ARB want to keep the phrase adding a canopy to the EC elevation?
I don't see the need to do that. I mean, as Frank, you're pointing out, there is no actual entrance there, right?
I don't think
No,
so.
there is an entrance there.
Oh, there is on the entrance, on the,
No, there isn't. The entrance is on the other 2 sides, the longer sides. There is no entrance on the front elevation, if you will. If you want to pull up the floor plan, I can show you, Chris.
Let me pull it up real quick.
I see the one you're talking about, Chris. It does look like there's one facing the
Yeah.
entrance court. Yeah, right there.
Oh,
But that's actually not under the white
And going back
ACM.
right here.
it's outside of that. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. It's not within that white frame element, if you will. It's outside of that, but it is facing Seminole Trail. So are you thinking about a canopy above that, a trellis or a canopy above it?
I think the recommendation was made to add a canopy there because it's a more traditional part of a building front, and emphasize that the front is facing the entrance corridor street, even if it's not exactly the way the building's being used, and adding a canopy there might help with the scale of that larger feature.
We can add a canopy there.
shifting this data, aligning and adding a canopy.
Yeah, but the canopy would be, just so I understand correctly, only in that central portion.
Correct.
Not above the white frame or not over the red. It's just in the middle portion, if you will. Is that what I understand?
I think that's what we're talking about. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we can add a canopy there.
ARB, are you okay with all of that? I know we're kind of in discussion, but it's sort of also a conversation.
Want me to?
Everybody good?
So can you see the Word document again?
Yeah,
Okay, so maybe just for clarity, here we'll say adding a canopy to the middle bay of the EC elevation.
yeah, that'll be helpful.
Okay. Are there other items on the list that board members would like to look at?
I think we're good. Sounds like we're okay. All right, well, with those changes, does anybody want to tackle a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'm gonna need some help though.
You get all the help you want. Yeah.
I'll move to approve the certificate of appropriateness for ARB 2021-131. Discount tire final site plan with the conditions listed in the staff report amended as follows. Edit number 3 to read, align the storefront heights on the EC elevation with those on the south side, adding a canopy to the middle bay of the EC elevation. Edit number 4 to read, or add the sentence, remove the trellis closest to the EC street. To number 4, strike number 5. Edit number 7 to read, consider revising the site plan to relocate the electrical switch cabinet to eliminate visibility from the EC. Alternatively, add a wing wall and paint the cabinet to match the building. Add a note to the site plan to identify the cabinet. Edit number 11 to read, consider revising the plan to provide additional planting area along the Route 29 frontage to accommodate required frontage trees free of utilities. Note that this will likely require the elimination of some parking spaces in the 8-space parking row adjacent to the Route 29 frontage. Alternatively, locate larger trees further into the planting area towards the building and one in the parking area, eliminating 1 parking space.
Masterful motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. That was quite an effort there.
And Carolyn, could you call the vote, please?
Yes. Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Missile.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, applicant.
Thank you so much, everybody. This was very helpful and very engaging a discussion. So appreciate everybody's time.
Thanks for your collaboration. We appreciate it too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, we will now move on to the second regular review item, which was the first ARB 2021-126 Chipotle. Margaret, do you have your presentation?
I am going to try to share this again, see if it works this time without crashing my computer.
One thing to note, Fred, I forgot to mention this at the beginning. I will need to leave the meeting at 1:25 or so. Apologize.
225?
Excuse me, yes,
2:25?
2:25.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Frank. We'll still have a quorum if we go over.
Are you able to see my PowerPoint slide?
Yes.
Just one, not two? Good. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay, this is a proposal to replace an existing vacant restaurant building in the Hollymead Town Center with a new structure that has a Chipotle restaurant. The building is located just north of the PetSmart store and south of the Target store and parking lot, and it's immediately adjacent to Route 29. The existing building was approved by the ARB as part of the Area B in the Hollymead Town Center, and the approved design is closely coordinated with the other buildings in that shopping center. Proposed building design would maintain a minimal connection to the other buildings by using the same brick for the lower portion of the walls. The proposed design incorporates new elements that would reduce the connection of the new building to the existing buildings, and they include a gray color for the upper wall, a metal element at the drive-through window, and another feature on the drive-through elevation that's composed of a series of metal tubes. The design also uses less detail to break up the walls than the other buildings in the shopping center. And this is particularly evident in the ethos band at the top of the wall that's very tall. Because the ethos element appears top heavy, we've recommended that it be revised to be reduced in height or to incorporate detailing to reduce the scale. And we've also recommended that additional information be provided to clarify the appearance of the metal tubes. The proposed building is smaller than the existing one, and a drive-through lane is proposed around the north, south, and east sides of the building, and it's that east is the entrance corridor. The proposal also retains the screening wall on the entrance corridor side of the site, and it extends that to enclose a new dumpster.
Margaret, your slides are not moving at all.
They're not moving?
You're still on the first slide that says what the project is.
Well, I am having trouble then with this. I don't know how to fix that. Let me stop sharing. Chris Taggart, are you still with us? Could you pull up my presentation and I will run through it again? I'm still having this issue of I'm just having this odd issue where I now can't get out of my PowerPoint. What are you all seeing?
No, nothing. Nothing is being shared.
Yeah, we're just seeing the gallery.
Okay, well, that's good. Chris, are you able to find my presentation? Awesome. Okay.
They're reviewing it now.
I can see it, but it's the whole thing. It's not in presenter mode. There you go.
There we go. Okay, next slide, please, Chris. Thank you. Okay, again, quickly, sorry to repeat. You have something to look at. This is a proposal to replace the existing restaurant building that was the TGI Fridays at Hollymead Town Center. It would be replaced with a new restaurant building. Again, it's located just north of PetSmart, south of Target in the parking lot, and it's adjacent to the Route 29 entrance corridor. Next slide, please. Thanks. The existing building, you can hit your, should be a animation there, Chris. You can just, there you go. So that building was approved by the ARB as part of Area B in the Hollymead Town Center, and the approved design, Chris, another tap on them, thank you. It's closely coordinated with the other buildings in the shopping center. Next slide, please. That proposed design would maintain a minimal connection to the other buildings in the shopping center by using that the same brick on the lower portion of the walls. The proposed design incorporates new elements that are not in the shopping center. That's that gray color wall. There you go, thank you. A metal element at the drive-through window. There you go. And another feature on that wall, which is those series of metal tubes. Thanks, Chris. The design also uses less detail to break up the walls than the other buildings that are in the shopping center. And this is evident mostly in the ethos band at the top of the wall. That's very tall, appearing top heavy. And so we've recommended that it be revised to be reduced in height to incorporate detailing to reduce that scale. Okay, next slide, please. The proposed building is smaller than the existing one. The drive-through lane, thank you, is proposed around the north, south, and east sides of the building. And that east side is what faces the entrance corridor. Next slide. The proposal also retains the screening wall on the entrance corridor side of the site, and it extends to enclose a new dumpster. And I think there should be some highlighting there, Chris. There you go. And one more. There you go. And there's the dumpster. Okay, next slide. Extension of the wall would be completed with materials to match the existing, and the drawings show the wall as a solid wall. Next slide. But the existing wall includes some windows. Got an arrow to point that out. Thanks. And those windows don't provide a view into any interior space, but they do help break up the length of that wall. And so we've recommended that they be retained. Next slide. The landscape plan that was previously approved for this portion of the development includes a substantial quantity of trees and shrubs along the entrance corridor. Next slide. And when the leaves are on the trees, visibility of that existing building is very much reduced. And when the leaves are off the trees, the structure is readily visible through the landscaping. Next slide. The proposed landscape plan does not show the full extent of the landscaping that was previously approved. So we've recommended that the plan be revised to make it clear that the previously approved frontage landscaping is to remain in place. Next slide. New lighting is proposed for the site and the building, and we've made several recommendations to make the lighting consistent with the entrance corridor guidelines and with the lighting in the rest of the shopping center. One more slide. There we go. So that's the end of the slides that I have to show you. The action that you want to take today is an action on the initial site plan and to provide comments on both the site and architectural design for the next submittal. Our recommendation is to recommend approval of the initial plan without conditions. And I can pull up a more readable list of those conditions when you are ready to see them.
Great.
Stop sharing now, Chris. Thanks.
Thank you, Margaret. That was very helpful. I'll ask the ARB members now if you guys have any questions. I'll start with Chris. Any questions for Margaret?
Margaret, thanks for that presentation. I don't have any questions at this point. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Frank Hancock?
Yes, Margaret, is the existing screen wall the only element that is to remain? Like it's not a renovation, it's a tear down in new building?
That's what it looks like to me, yes.
Okay. Just curious, do you know much about the history of the windows that are in that screen wall?
Yeah, is there something in particular you're wondering, or?
I thought you were going to say, do you have a lot of time for me to tell you the story?
Exactly.
When that section of the center was reviewed by the ARB, there was a lot of concern about having the backs of the buildings facing the street and having blank walls facing the street. And so that was that treatment was settled on to make that design acceptable.
So they were kind of as a result of the ARB review, came out of ARB review.
Yes. Yeah, that's my memory. You also have like a different treatment on the target wall. There's there that are not exactly all true windows, so another treatment was tried there. And at the moment, I forget what's on the PetSmart side of the building, but that was the ARB trying to make sure that you had more of an active elevation facing the street.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Frank Stoner?
Thanks, Margaret. I don't have any questions right now.
All right, thanks. Margaret, I just have one question. This may sound kind of silly, but if they are retaining the existing screen wall, what visibility is there of this building with that existing screen wall there from the entrance corridor?
Right, well, based on the existing building, again, when the leaves are on the trees, the visibility is very much reduced. But just driving by last week with the leaves off the trees, you can see right, I mean, you get a clear view of it. It's not a long sustained view, but the parts of the building and definitely the screen wall are visible.
Got it. And sort of from an oblique angle, more than the building sticking above the screen wall? Or is it above the screen wall also?
No, that's a good question. I don't know that you would see much of the building above the screen wall. It would be more the screen wall and then an angled view of the overall.
Yeah, got it. Gotcha. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Applicant, do you have a presentation for us?
Hi, yes, this is Carter Baum with Kimley Horn. I have a few things to add, I guess, regarding the screen wall you are just discussing. If I can share my screen and kind of show you what the street view looks like, if that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
We'll go ahead and do that here. So this is, of course, with leaves on the trees, but here is your screen wall with the windows. So the only
Carter, we're not seeing anything. At least I'm not seeing anything.
Okay.
There we go. There we go.
You see it now? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the existing screen wall with windows. It's about 17 feet high. We haven't taken a field measurement yet, but we believe it's about 17 feet high. And then on top of that, the road in front of the building sits an additional 17 feet below the finished floor of the existing building. So there's a significant amount of elevation change between where your car is sitting on the road and the building. So it's our belief that leaving this buffer in place and leaving the screen wall in place will significantly reduce any visual you have of the proposed building. The new building won't be towering over top of the screen wall by any means. So that's just one point I wanted to make as far as screen wall and plantings go. The only other thing I'll mention with regard to the EFS, we're going to do some field measurements and our architect is going to revise his drawing. Our intention is to match the surrounding buildings of the shopping center. We're not going to overdo the height of that EFS. So we will get that field measurement done before this next submittal and revise the architectural drawings to show a matching face to the surrounding buildings.
Great.
And other than that, Margaret, thank you. We don't have any other concerns with the comments you provided. Some of the lighting things you mentioned are no problem. We can get those. We get that adjusted for you on the next submission. But yeah, happy to answer any other questions you guys have.
Excellent. Great. Thanks, Carter. We appreciate it. Chris, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I guess when you said just now, talking about taking the field measurements and kind of matching the EFS band, are you talking about the actual kind of profile and detailing of that existing wall, or is it just kind of the height of that existing or the proposed EFS band?
Yeah, so we don't have the measurement for what it is today and on those buildings in the wall. So that's what I was mentioning when I said field measurement. We're just going to take that measurement and copy that to the new building face. Was that your question?
Yeah, or I guess if it would, the existing wall and I guess the existing building has kind of this built up EFS profile at the top, like molding. Is the proposed going to have a similar profile, or are you still talking about the just kind of a flat panel at the top of the Chipotle?
No, we're trying to match just like the existing.
Okay.
We're not trying to reinvent anything new here.
All right, thanks. That was it.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Frank Hancock.
Thanks, Carter. One quick question of the existing screen wall. That's really to be left as is, right? The architectural rendering elevation showed it just as solid brick, but there's more detailing in addition to those windows? Is the intent to just leave it as it is?
Yes, that's correct. The windows will stay. We'll get that revision or that, I'm sorry, the elevation updated. And I believe Margaret mentioned we're going to extend it to the left to incorporate the dumpster. That's just going to match the existing pattern that's out there. But yeah, everything where the windows are will remain as is.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Frank Stoner?
Thanks, Carter. I don't have any additional questions.
Thank you, Frank, and I do not either. So we appreciate, again, your time, Carter and Carolyn. Is there any public comment related to this application?
No, there sure isn't.
Okay, sounds good. Carter and other applicants, we will go into discussion now and just go around the room in reverse order. Frank Stoner, any thoughts for discussion?
I don't think so, Fred. I'm pretty comfortable with what they've shown, subject to the modifications I think they've committed to. I don't think visibility is a big issue, given what I've, that photo from the entrance corridor kind of reinforced that. I just don't see it as being a big deal. So I'm comfortable.
Great, thank you. Frank Hancock.
I agree with Frank Stoner. I think it's a nice site plan. I like how they kind of weave the drive-through in and keep that existing screen wall. It's a nice solution. No, I don't have anything to add, on top of what's on the staff report. So.
Great, thanks, Frank. Chris?
Yeah, I also don't really have any concerns over and above the recommendations in the staff report or concerns about any of those recommendations. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. Thanks.
Thank you. This is an easy one. I share all of your thoughts and opinions. So I think we're all on the same page. I guess with that, Margaret, do we need to take a look at the staff recommendations? Sounds like there may not be any adjustments, but it doesn't look like we need to make a motion either, correct?
Actually, this is an action on an initial site plan, and it looks like I'm going to have trouble sharing again. So I'm going to back out of that if I can. My computer is just unhappy. It is an initial site plan, so you would be making a motion, and it would be for to recommend approval of the initial plan with the recommendations in the staff report.
Great. Do we have a motion to that extent?
I'll move to.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Carolyn, can you call the vote, please?
All right, Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Missile.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And thanks again to the applicant. Margaret, thanks for your help with that one. Moving on to other business. There are two other business items for today. First one is, can I get a motion to adopt the November 15th, 2021 ARB minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Great. And a vote, please, Carolyn?
All righty. Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Missile.
Aye. And the next meeting is scheduled for December 20th, 2021. Feel like we should have some sort of a Christmas party at that time, but we'll probably all be getting sick of Christmas parties by that point. So maybe we don't want to have one. Is everybody planning to be able to be here for the 20th?
I
Yes.
do not think I'll be here.
Okay. Margaret, maybe if you could just check with Dade and make sure he's still able to make it. I do plan to make it as well.
Okay, I will.
Great.
Can I just jump in and with two items real quick. Just a reminder that the first meeting in January is your annual meeting, and that's when we will be adopting the meeting schedule for the year and electing chairperson and vice chair. So just keep that in mind. But we do like to get a jump start on getting the schedules for the year settled. So just wondering, at this point, is everybody feeling still okay with first and third Mondays at 1:30? Or at, what's our time? At 1 o'clock? Everybody still good with that?
Yes.
Okay, and then just a second item on many of these projects, we do still have physical material samples that we receive and we are reviewing when we're preparing the staff reports. So when you're all looking at those reports, if you're wanting to see those samples, just give me or Chris a call and we can set up a time for y'all to come in and look at them. Been meaning to include that little blurb when we let you know all the staff reports are ready, and we have been failing to do that. So just wanted to make that note today. Thanks.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks, Margaret. Any other comments, questions, discussion? All right. Well, Margaret, Carolyn, Chris, thank you all as always. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting until December 20th. See you all then.
Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.